Welcome to the Readin', Writin', and Readers Club workshop. In this section, we will talk more about the anatomy of a book review. This is part 2, In the Middle. Now that you've looked at some good introductions, it's time to move to the middle part of the review. In the 2 to 4 sentences that make up the middle section of your review, you'll give the reader a brief synopsis of the story, an idea of what the book is about. Remember though, you want to be very careful not to rehash the entire plot. A well-written review gets a reader interested in the book, but it shouldn't serve as a substitute for having read the book. This section is a good place to highlight some of the elements of appeal. If you're dealing with a fiction book, some of your elements of appeal might be things like pacing, characterization, or setting. The handout called Considering a Book's Appeal goes into more detail about the fiction elements of appeal. It includes adjectives below each element of appeal that can be used to describe a book. For example, you might describe the pacing of a novel as densely written or fast-paced. The elements of appeal for nonfiction include subject, level of depth or detail, and storytelling style. You want to let the reader know the subject of the book. Is it history, art, or biography? You also want to define what the book covers. If history, what time period? Finally, when describing the book, it is a good idea to think about what grabbed your attention. Point out what you feel are the most important aspects of the book. Let's look at Blackman's Coffin again, and see how the middle section of the review develops. Sam Blackman, former chief warrant officer in the Criminal Investigation Detachment of the U.S. military, lost a leg and a piece of his soul in Iraq. He is about to be released from the VA hospital in Asheville with a big question mark hanging over the rest of his life. Sam is surprised when ex-Marine and fellow amputee Takima Robertson visits him with vague hints about an opportunity. Then Takima is found floating in the French Broad River, leaving people wondering why. In this example, the reviewer chose to focus almost exclusively on storyline or plot. Let's look at another example in which several different elements of appeal are used. This is a review of Father and Son by Larry Brown. The middle reads, "This novel, set in rural Mississippi during the late 1960s, is a taut tale that doesn't waste a word. Glenn Davis has just been released from prison. He learned nothing from the experience and is soon spewing trouble all over town. This psychological thriller is a chilling examination of how evil can erode a man's soul to nothing when fed on poverty and neglect. The fast pace makes it a quick and gripping read. The author's mastery of language and Southern speech make it a rewarding literary experience." In this review, you learn about the place, rural Mississippi, time period, 1960s, plot, convicted felon re-entering society, pace is fast-paced, the author's style is a mastery of language and Southern speech. Contrasting this review with Blackman's Coffin, you can see that it is possible to get a lot of information into just a few brief lines. Let's look at the middle section of the areas of my expertise to identify the nonfiction elements of appeal. NPR commentator John Hodgman has, and he's written the funniest, silliest, and possibly smartest reference book ever penned. Structured like an almanac that has nothing but contempt for almanacs, The Areas of My Expertise is a treat for anyone who has spent too much time in the reference section of their local library. Here the reviewer describes the subject and storytelling style. He also notes who might enjoy the book. To finish learning about the anatomy of a book review, please view Part 3, That's a Wrap.